here tonight, and thank you for being here and joining us for the 25th District Congressional Debate. On behalf of the Board of Directors, the ambassadors, and the members of the Palmdale Chamber of Commerce, I would just like to express how honored we are to be hosting this very important debate. And I would like to start the evening off by inviting Army veteran Brian Gray up to lead us in the flag salute. And if you would please remain standing, immediately following the flag salute, we are going to have a moment of silence in honor of Sergeant Steve Owen and in honor of all those who have fallen in the line of duty.
Follow after me. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Thank you, Brian. Before I introduce our candidates and our panel of moderators, I do have a few housekeeping issues that I wanted to bring up. First, if time permits, we will be taking questions from the audience. In the back of the room on the Chamber of Commerce table, we have white index cards and pens. If you have a question you would like to ask the candidates, please legibly write your question on one of those cards. And then you can pass it to any of the members with green badges or our ambassadors in green jackets, and we'll make sure they get up to the moderators. Also, we would ask that you would please save your applause until the end, and please refrain from any cheering or booing or any kind of outbursts. I completely understand that some of the questions we may ask the candidates tonight might be very personal to you. I know that politics can get very emotional. My two daughters are here. They could tell you that, you know, on occasion, I've had to turn off the TV because I've gotten worked up over, you know, something, and so I completely understand. But unfortunately tonight we have a lot of issues that we would like to cover and not a lot of time. And it really does help keep things on track when we don't have to pause for clapping and any outbursts. So we would appreciate, you know, your cooperation on that. And I would like to just thank Joyce Bruce from the Antelope Valley Swap Meet for donating all the refreshments tonight. If you haven't had a chance to have some, please help yourself. Okay, so now we'll get to introductions. I'll start by introducing our moderators. First, we have Assistant Managing Editor of Politics for the Los Angeles Times, Christina Bellantoni. Then we have Project Manager for Save Cal and Transportation Commissioner for the City of Palmdale, Rich Poston. And last but not least, our lead moderator of the night, Director of Public Affairs for the Palmdale Water District and also Vice Chair of Governmental Affairs for the Palmdale Chamber of Commerce, Mike McNutt. Okay, and now to introduce our main men of the night, our candidates. We have Congressman Steve Knight on the left and Mr. Brian Kaporia. Thank you, gentlemen, for being here tonight, and you know we're anxious to learn more about each of you. So, and right now I'm going to go ahead and hand it over to Mike, who will go over the ground rules with the candidates.
Thank you, Chairwoman. Gentlemen, thank you for coming tonight. This is an honor to be able to host an event like this. We're very pleased to get to know you better. I'm sure that everyone here is very excited as well. So let's go over just some ground rules. First of all, the debate is going to be a total of 60 minutes per the time as we start the debate. Each of you will have an opportunity for closing remarks, about 2 to 3 minutes. Each of you also have an opportunity to answer the questions. Try to limit it to about 2 minutes. Each of you also will have an opportunity to rebut each other or to respond to each other, and that would be about a minute. And we're going to try to stick very closely to these time restrictions. We have a timekeeper, Miss Laura Gallego, sitting here. She has color-coded time things for you to look at. So obviously, obviously green is 2 minutes, yellow is 1 minute, and red is 30 seconds. And then I believe she has a little alarm that is going to go off to alert everybody that it is time. So we're going to try to stick to this because we have a lot of things to talk about. I do want to reiterate Jennifer's sentiments that we ask the audience that, to be very calm and polite. This is going to be a very professional and diplomatic process. So clearly we ask that you refrain from outbursts and comments and applause until until the debate is over. And then lastly, gentlemen, if you could refrain from asking each other questions during the debate, we will have plenty of questions, and the audience will have plenty of questions to ask as well. So with that, let's maybe just give them one quick round of applause. Welcome here to the Palmdale California Professional Debate for the 25th District. Thank you.
All right. Good evening, gentlemen, and thank you for being here.
Good evening.
I'm going to propose the first question is in dealing with law enforcement is going to go to our incumbent, Steve Knight. And the first question is this. The entire Antelope Valley and law enforcement community today celebrates the life of Sergeant Owens, a Los Angeles County Sheriff Sergeant that was killed in line of duty. In the light of this tragedy, what would you in Congress do to help heal the divide of the anti-police sentiments, and do you agree with having body cameras? Start with you, Senator Knight.
Well, it's a celebration of life today. It really is. I met Sergeant Owen just a couple times. I wouldn't say that I knew him, but from all accounts, they said that he was a great man and he was a great mentor for our community. So it's a loss for our community. There's no doubt. I've been to several law enforcement funerals, and they are draining at most. But they are a celebration of life for someone who's tried to take care of our community and take care of our families on a day-to-day basis. Law enforcement is a tough job. I did it for 18 years. I loved it. I absolutely loved being a LAPD officer. And I love the service part of police work. I think the greatest police show in the world is 1 out of 12 because they actually showed up and they handled a problem. It wasn't like the cop shows of today where every episode is a gun battle or somebody is cheating on their wife or something like this. It's really not like that. Law enforcement is a family, and all of us kind of bind together. But it is dangerous, and it is dangerous today where there's a difficulty with communities that have a difficult time dealing with the police, and sometimes there are incidents that the police get involved in that are not something that we want to see and not something that we want to be involved with. So I do support body cameras. I do. I think the body cameras protect the law enforcement community about 9,999 times out of 10,000. And on that one time that it is out there and showing something that a law enforcement officer has done wrong, well, we need to see that too. So I think the body cameras are just a protection for the law enforcement community as well as for the community that they are protecting. But make no bones about it. Being a law enforcement officer is a dangerous day-to-day, minute-to-minute job. And we do need to stand up and support our law enforcement and know that it is difficult and we are with them.
The people in the audience, please, in consideration of those sitting around you, please mute all cell phones and if you have pagers as well. Thank you.
Good evening.
Good evening.
What would you do from your position in Congress to ensure that the Antelope Valley, with Edwards Air Force Base, the Air Force Plant 42 here in Palmdale, remains the aerospace capital of the world, and that high-paying technical jobs remain here rather than have to move them to other states with better incentives than California? And we'll start with Mr. Caporio.
Yeah. Well, thank you. I agree. This is Aerospace Central, and I've said this all along that the Wright brothers in their bicycle shop did a great thing in Dayton, and then they flew something in North Carolina, and so it produced manned controlled flight. But everything else has been right here.
Southern California has controlled aerospace for the last 90 years. Now, I wore a pin today, which is the F-117. We're celebrating the 35th anniversary of the first flight of the F-117. There was nothing like this. We had a need, and we said, how quickly can we get it done? This is the perfect example of innovation in America. How quickly we got this done, how quickly we got it to the battlefield, and how quickly we got it to our pilots. But let's talk about a few of the things that we've done. So when I was in the Senate, we got some information. I went to GoBiz and I went to the governor and I said, hey governor, we're going to build a new bomber. And he says, how do you know that? And I says, well, don't worry about that, but we're going to build a new bomber. In about a month, it was released that we were going to build a new bomber. And so he came to me and he said, what do we need to do? And I said, well, here's the deal. It could go to Missouri, it could go to Florida, it could go to Texas, it could even go, parts of it, to Virginia. But if we want to be on the cutting edge, we've got to have a tax credit. So I wrote a $420 million prime contractor tax credit. I know some people are saying different things, but that was the prime contractor. That's what Northrop got. That is the reason we are going to be building much of the B-21 here today. Recently, I've put forward the Aeronautics Innovation Act. That is a roadmap for Congress. If we're going to connect to the private industry and we're going to have NASA and we're going to still have our aeronautics community together, then we have to have a roadmap. And us, public citizens that have tax money, have got to be involved. So part of that roadmap is a low-boom supersonic demonstrator. That is already moving forward. That's going to be a Lockheed product. We also are going to work on hypersonics, because so many times we've worked on hypersonics like the X-15 or the X-43 or the X-51, and then we've stopped. So let's continue on these things. And I would need a lot more than 2 minutes if we're going to talk about aerospace. Thank you.
Very good. In case you didn't know, California is in its drought, and we're in its 5th year now going into this drought. And I think we all can agree that water is a premium, and it's highly controversial, especially amongst different interest groups. And it's not consistently being replenished, as we know, because of the Sierra Nevada snowpack and so forth. So the question really is, what would you do in Congress to advocate specifically here for the Antelope Valley to help ensure that federal dollars will be available for things like capital improvement projects, locally sourced water projects, and increased storage opportunities and capacities? So, Congressman.
So water has got to be one of the top priorities in the western states and in the country. There's no doubt about it. This is our 6th year of a major drought. But before that, we weren't doing so well. So if we're going to have water, we have to have some real ideas. We've put forward a water bill in Congress for the last 4 years. Now, we've not gotten a senator that would push that bill forward. We've tried to work with Senator Feinstein and Senator Boxer, and we've gotten to a certain level, but we can't get them to push forward a water bill that will actually bring water to the Central Valley and to Southern California. So we are continuing to work on that. But let's look at some of the water issues that people always kind of throw out. They say, golly, why can't we do more desalination? Why can't we do this? Why can't we do that? Let's take desal right off the bat. Why do we need desal if there are billions of gallons of water going out to the ocean every minute? Every minute. Why would we let the water go out into the ocean, then become salt water, then have to build an $800 million project to take the salt out of the water so we could use it? Why don't we capture the water before it goes out into the ocean? There are many ways you can do that. I brought up a plan that has worked in China, it's worked in France, it would work here. It is an underwater river, and it sits right on the floor of the ocean. You capture the water at the Columbia River before it goes into the ocean, it goes into this tube, sits on the bottom of the ocean, comes up in the LA Basin, brings 4 million acre-feet per year for $10 billion. Now, if we're talking about fixing water, it's probably a $10 to $30 billion fix. But anyone will tell you if we can get 4 million acre-feet per year, we can take care of the LA Basin. That means the water that's here stays here. That means the water that comes through the aqueduct can stay on the eastern part of the state and stay over in this part of the country. So I've said it all along, the 3 big priorities, and if these aren't your 3 priorities, please don't run for office. Defending this nation, jobs in the economy, and water better be your 3 big items for the western states.
The single largest cost to small businesses in the Antelope Valley is wages and benefits. With the upcoming minimum wage being increased in the state of California to $15, what would you do to help lessen the burden on all of our small businesses, to help them prevent them from cutting hours, laying off workers and closing their doors? And would you also support raising the federal minimum wage? Brian, going to you.
Yeah, I think $15 is too high. I do. I talked to the assemblyman who wrote the increase of the minimum wage here in California, and he increased it to $9 and then he increased it to $10. So I sat down with him and I said, why'd you pick $9 and why'd you pick $10? And he said, well, it's a natural progression that we pick the next dollar and then we pick the next dollar. I said, so how many businesses did you sit down and how many times did you have roundtables to talk to businesses to see if they could take this or if they were going to lay off people? Well, we didn't do that. We just thought that the next dollar was the right thing to do. That's not the way you do this. That is not the way you engage. So what we've done is we've had roundtables. We've talked to business owners who are big business owners. We've talked to small business owners. We've had roundtables with women-owned business owners to talk to them about access to capital. If you cannot get capital, you probably can't expand your business, which means you cannot increase more opportunities, which means you cannot create more jobs. So that is one of the goals that we have set down and said that access to capital, to minority-owned, to women-owned, to disadvantage-owned businesses is less, and so we have to make a level playing field. So that's one of the things that we've talked about. But the second thing, let's look at regulations. If we're going to go to $15 an hour, never talk about regulations. The business community is just going to say, you keep putting regulations on us, and now you're telling us that we have to pay something that is a third, or in some cases, twice as much as we had to pay. How do you expect us to keep our doors open? Now, if you look at San Francisco, if you look at Seattle, we wouldn't expect them to keep their doors open. You can all read the articles that have come out of those two cities with $15 an hour. 700 people lost jobs in the restaurant industry in the first year in Seattle because of the $15 an hour. So we need to raise the minimum wage, there's no doubt about it. My first job was $3.35. It needs to raise, but it has to be commensurate to what business can do, and we can still create jobs.
Thank you. So your contest obviously is very important to people in this room and in this community, but the presidential race, how have you addressed concerns about Donald Trump when asked by voters?
Yeah, absolutely. I address those concerns. I say they concern me. They do. There's been a lot of things that have been said in this campaign that I don't believe, that I don't condone, and I think that they are not something that I would hope a presidential candidate would say. I don't think that either of these candidates are going on a path that we could all stand up and root and say, boy, this is the greatest America's got. If you look at polling, they're both at about 56% disapproval. Now, if that's the best we can put to run for president, then you have to make a choice. And you're going to have to make a choice from somebody who's said a lot of things that are very, very hurtful, and I do not condone. Or you are looking at someone who has been in politics a very long time, and she's got an awful lot of baggage, not just the emails, but the things that have come out of the foundation and all of the other things that have come out. I think this is a difficult race. I tell my son, who's 22, this is probably the most difficult race you'll ever see in your life. I believe that. And I think it's probably the most difficult race in all of our lives. But in the end, we will have to make a choice.
So what is your choice on November 8th?
Yeah, so I've come out just recently and said I don't support either one. But I will be voting. That's the same question for both, right? Or just me?
Okay, so, Congressman, should Congress, and specifically, and we're talking about the Islamic State, do you feel that Congress should hold a vote on the authorization to use military force against the Islamic State? Why or why not, and how would you vote? And in addition to that, do you feel that our nation's policy towards Syrian refugees should change, and why or why not?
Okay. So obviously, if we're talking about what's happening in the country, we're always talking about our economy, we're always talking about relations here in the world, but we're also always talking about what's happening abroad, what's happening with our military, what's happening with our alliances, and what's happening with possible enemies. What's happening with ISIS over the last 10 years has changed, and it has gone in different directions and in different countries. It will always be our top priority until we have either defeated them completely or we have gotten them to a point where we can control. Now, secondly, if we are going to do that, we've got to take a role as Americans. We are either going to step up and do something, or we are going to just be a part of the team. I think that we should step up. I think that what happened this last Sunday, we know that the Houthis sent these 2 missiles out at our destroyer. We know that. We should take serious action into finding this out and making some sort of strikes to make sure that this doesn't happen, or tell them in our strikes that this will not happen again. But this is always going to be one of the biggest issues that we're going to see, whoever goes into Congress. Not just what's happening with ISIS, but what's happening across the border from North Korea all the way down. As sitting on Armed Services, we get these briefings weekly. Many of these briefings I can't even talk about. But we get these briefings weekly because things are changing so quickly. That second part of the question again?
Yeah, sure. Do you believe that our nation's policy toward the Syrian refugees should change?
Yeah, the Syrian refugees, and I'll do this very quickly. This was an executive move. Our refugees that we bring into the country are typically 70,000 per year. The executive, the president, can bring that up. He brought it up to 80,000, but he said those 10,000 will be Syrian refugees. If a country is fleeing at 2.9 million and we take 10,000, I need a big chalkboard to show you how many zeros that is and how small a percentage that is. So it was a political move to show that, yes, we are helping people. We're not really helping them that much, but we're helping them. I don't think you should fly refugees over 17 countries to get here. I think that what you should do is work with the countries that are in the region to take these refugees and work with the area, work with Syria to make safe zones, to make it able so that they can be in their own country. But 10,000 out of 2.9 million, that's a political move.
Mr. Caforio, will you be voting for Hillary Clinton?
I will be voting for Hillary Clinton. We cannot have Donald Trump be president of this country.
Okay, audience, please. No.
My next question is to Councilman Knight. Education is important. According to a recent finding in a report by the Pew Research Center, employment and occupation requiring more education and training. What would you do to help us in the Antelope Valley bring more additional resources to this area, and more importantly, keeping our youth here with higher paying jobs, enhancing community opportunities in education? What would you do to help bring more resources?
Absolutely. So here's an example of saying something and actually doing something. So if you've lived here for more than about 3 months, you would know that our biggest issue is always getting better paying jobs here. We've always had good retail jobs, and we've had kind of the $8 to $15 an hour jobs. But aerospace, agriculture, and some other areas have kind of dominated here. If we're going to change it, then we've got to work on it. So I'll tell you what we've done. When I was in the Assembly and the Senate, Microsoft came to me and they said, hey, we've got this new program. And I said, what is it? They said, we want to put computer science into classrooms, because if we can do that, we can get young men and women involved in computer science and we can move them into college doing that. I said, that's great. What's the program called? They said, it's TEALS. Well, I was the second senator to bring TEALS to their district. We have it in 10 classrooms in this district, 5 schools. One of those classrooms is an AP class right now. Also, we've got to work with the great institutions here. Some people running for office don't believe that we have a 4-year university here. Everyone who lives in the Antelope Valley better know that we have UAV here. So this is a private institution that has actually worked from the grassroots of the community to see what the community needs and then work with the community. There is nothing better than a university like that. So I worked directly with UAV and I said, hey, can we build curriculums to help the kids get right into a job here? They said, yes. What do we need to do? So we sat down with Northrop, we sat down with Lockheed, and we are going to continue to do that to see what kind of an engineering program, when they graduate, that they can actually be hired. Now, lastly, you've got to work with our community college, and that's what we've done. So I talked to the community college and I said, look, there's a lot of jobs around here that aren't aerospace, and some people can't get a security clearance. So why don't we work on a curriculum for our solar industry? And so that's what we've done. We've built a curriculum out here for the solar industry. So yes, we have to do that so that our kids can be educated, but not just educated so they're educated so they actually get a job that pays for a house, that pays for a car, that sends their kids to college. That's what we need here.
Thank you, Councilman. Mr. Cahoria.
Thank you. Just a reminder, if you have questions, you can put them on these cards here, and we will review them when we get to
And I can respond, can't I?
question round. Quickly.
Oh, I'll never ever say anything about him, but I'm sure he will about me tonight. The federal government, if we got rid of the Department of Education, the money stays here. If you are a school board member, I thank you. If you're a school board member, I trust you. I was on the PTA for 12 years. I worked with school board members, and I worked right here in this district. We need the money to stay here. Every time we give it to Sacramento, it comes back less. Every time we send it across the country, it comes back less. All we have to do is say, look, we can have our curriculum right here at the state level with a bunch of retired teachers and superintendents and just parents saying a curriculum that goes across the state. That would be for everyone. But then let's keep the dollars here. If we keep sending them to Washington, D.C., I guarantee, yes, you're not going to get your dollars back here. We keep sending them to Sacramento, yes, I guarantee. But I would trust the school board members, and I would trust us, parents, and the teachers to spend it right here.
All right, gentlemen, we're going to our lightning round, so you have 30 seconds to answer the question. The first question is, do you support California high-speed rail and the opportunities it brings to the Antelope Valley? Mr. Caforia.
Lightning round. Yeah, I haven't supported the high-speed train, but let's look at what's happening with it. It is years and years of problems in the court. We're going to see that continually. We are advancing in airplanes every year. That's part of the Aeronautics Innovation Act. That is part of putting money into the roadmap to make sure that we have more economical airplanes, we can get across the country, save fuel, save time. Those are the kinds of things that are working. If we get to a high-speed train, if that's what the people want at some point, I think airplanes will still be the #1 thing. So I do not support the train.
Again, you have 30 seconds. How do you plan to vote on Proposition 64, legalization of marijuana for recreational use? And have you ever used marijuana yourself? And more specifically, did you inhale? We'll start with Congressman.
That's a really good question. Yeah, so I was a police officer for 18 years. I'm not going to support recreational marijuana. I have never tried marijuana. I know that nobody would ever believe that, but I've never tried marijuana. But I don't support it at the recreational level for a couple of reasons. And one of them is, if we're going to do this, then we've got to do something at the federal level. Right now, marijuana is a Schedule I drug. If I asked you out there to define Schedule I drug, you might not be able to, but it's one sentence, no medicinal value. All of us would probably agree that marijuana has some medicinal value. I believe that it does. But we've got to take it out of Schedule I, put it in as Schedule III, then leave it up to the states. But you're going to vote on this. It's still going to be illegal at the federal level. It's still illegal in Colorado.
Mr.
Yeah, absolutely. I would never.
Congressman.
That's okay. I was a councilman up here too. I would absolutely never tell you a vote when it is still working through the process. This is going to change dramatically. If we were voting tomorrow, I would say yes or no. But this will change dramatically. We know that. We're going to get through this election, and the people who are elected are going to go through a process of lame duck. Then they're going to go through a process of working on these types of issues. It is a framework right now, and I think that everyone says they will or will not vote on this, don't know exactly what's coming.
Congressman, would you vote to increase the debt ceiling the next time that Congress is faced with the issue?
Well, I didn't last time, so no.
Did the Congress do the right thing by overriding President Obama's in vetoing his measure in the 9/11 families and suing the government in Saudi Arabia?
Yes. I think that anyone knows anything about 9/11, we know that there was a direct correlation to Saudi Arabian money to what happened in 9/11. We also know there's a direct correlation to what happened in Saudi Arabia to training people who were involved in 9/11. There is no dispute about that. This is factual evidence. So I think that that was the right thing to do. I think that President Obama was thinking down a road that I understand, but I couldn't go down that road with him. This was the proper vote to override the veto.
For the first time ever, California voters will be faced with 2 Democrats on a statewide ballot running for U.S. Senate. Mr. Caforio, who are you going to be voting for?
Well, this is kind of like our election we had last time with 2 Republicans, and a lot of my Democrat friends said, boy, this is really difficult. I said, no, it's not. I'm not voting for either one of them. My friends in Congress that say, boy, it's about time we got rid of Barbara Boxer, and I said, boy, you don't know what's coming, because I do think Kamala Harris is going to win. She has shown to be a very extreme Attorney General. Now, we have a veteran that is running right here in the Antelope Valley, and I will be writing his name in John Pelletier, and I say, vote for John.
Thank you. And this will be our final lightning round question, and then we will turn to questions from the audience. So taking a page from the presidential debate, Mr. Caforio, what is one thing Congressman Knight has achieved that you would applaud in Congress? Congressman, what is something you would compliment about your rival?
I don't know Brian well enough. We've only known each other for a few months during a very difficult campaign system, a very difficult campaign season. But I will say that after this election, whoever wins or whoever loses, I'm sure that we will talk and talk about some of the things that have happened in the campaign, but I just don't know him well enough.
Thank you, Congressman. Okay, so we've gotten actually quite a few questions from the audience, and please continue to fill out your cards and bring them up to us. But let's go back to just like a normal format. Each of you have a couple of minutes to answer these questions. So, Congressman, I'm going to start with you, if you don't mind. What are your 3 legislative priorities? Like your top 3?
Yeah, well, I've been a broken record. I have said this from the very beginning. I've said what we're going to do, I said what we did, and we are going to continue to do that. I do think aerospace is the lifeblood of the high technical jobs in the Antelope Valley and in the 25th District. We have 450 subcontractors in this area that are connected to this district. Those are all DoD subcontractors. The second thing I said was veterans, and that is a big issue. That also encompasses defending our nation, making sure that our veterans, when our military goes out, they're prepared. When they come back, we take care of them. And the third thing is water. I think that those 3 things encompass what we should be talking about. Now, there are big, big issues. We should talk about Social Security and Medicare every year because it changes every year. We should talk about immigration reform. There's no doubt about that. But if you're talking about the 3 biggest issues, and you don't talk about defense of the nation and take care of our veterans, and you don't talk about jobs, which would mean aerospace here, and you don't talk about water, then you're really not talking about what we need to do, big ticket items. Those are my priorities. I think that those are most everyone's priorities. If you're not going to defend the nation, we could be attacked. There could be problems that we didn't see and we didn't address. If you're not taking care of water here, we will not be able to live the way we want to. And you absolutely have to make sure the jobs in the economy. And I tell the class, I speak to classes all the time. I spoke to 3 classes this week. And a young lady up in the audience, I said, what is your top priority? And she said, well, jobs. And I said, you know what? When your grandmother was sitting there, it was the same answer. When your grandkid sits there, it's the same answer. Jobs in the economy better be number 1. Defending this nation. Because we live in the western states, it better be water.
Mr. Caforio.
Mr. Caforio, how do you feel about implementing gender-neutral bathrooms at our public schools?
You know, this is an issue that
Congressman.
So, if we're going to talk about these issues, let's get back to where we should be talking about these. When I talked about this on the floor of the Assembly or on the Senate, I said, why are we not allowing the school boards to make those decisions for their school districts? If you have a school district that might have a high percentage of kids, then let them make a policy for this. If you have a school district that doesn't have a kid that has this, then why would you put a blanket policy? Why wouldn't we leave it at the federal level? Now, the second thing is, if we start talking about this, and I don't know if he's for it or against it, but if we're talking about making people uncomfortable, what about the other kids that are now feeling uncomfortable? Because this policy has changed. So if we have 2% of the school that says, I feel really uncomfortable, but now you switch it over and now you make 2% or maybe 6 or 7% uncomfortable on the other side, did we fix the problem? No. You can do that at the local school districts. The local school boards, the teachers, the administrators at the local school districts can set a policy, especially if you have a group or a high percentage of this group. So when Sacramento and Washington, D.C., and I know the president got involved in this, that's just not right. The school district here in Palmdale is different than the school district in Mojave. It's different than the school district in Connecticut. Good gosh, let our school board members do what we elect them to do. If they don't, get them out, get somebody new.
Thank you. What should Congress be doing to mitigate the humanitarian crisis in Aleppo? I'll start with the Congressman.
Yeah, so we've seen this, and there's been comments that I don't agree with. We are absolutely positive, by talking to the generals, the very smart generals, that Russia is making strikes that are not against ISIS, but they're actually making strikes against the opposition forces, which we are helping. So if that is happening, and they're making strikes that are killing civilians, killing women and children, we should be more involved. Or we say, we're out of here. Now, I don't think we should say we're out of here. I think we should be more involved. But the fact that we believe, or some people in this country think that ISIS is doing a great thing, I mean that Russia is doing a great thing because their bomb connections are going against ISIS, that is absolutely not true. They are bombing civilians. They're bombing opposition forces. So if we're going to be involved, be involved. And I think we absolutely should be involved, because where we're talking about is a hotbed or a vacuum where other groups will thrive. So if we are not involved, we're allowing that to happen.
Mr. Caforio.
And I'm going to start with you, Mr. Caforio. In your opinion, what is the biggest issue that's facing the United States of America?
Yeah, I think this is one of the biggest differences in the two candidates. In the last two debates, it has been asked, what are the priorities? We both said the same thing. You can make your own decision. My opponent has said equal pay, Social Security, and immigration reform. All we should work on, absolutely. But if you never say defending the nation in your top three priorities, in the last two debates, we've been asked these three priorities, and you never say jobs in the economy, and you don't say water, which are my three priorities, that's an issue. That is an issue. Defending this nation should be top. It should. With that, it should be jobs in the economy. But we've had two debates in the last week where we've been asked this, our top priorities. We have been very clear, and this is not a cut on my opponent, but we've been very clear that equal pay, Social Security, and immigration, and mine have been jobs in the economy, defending the nation, and water. So you can see a difference. Now, all 6 of these we should work on. There is no doubt about it. But we are asked on priority. And you will always get from me, as I said to that kid in the classroom, jobs in the economy will always be number 1. And defending the nation will always be with it. Always. If you come to me in 50 years, I will say the same thing. So that is the difference. And I agree, all 6 of these are goals, and they are things that we should work on daily, weekly, yearly.
Audience?
Sure, and we have 2 minutes, 3 minutes, 30?
2 minutes, sir.
Okay, just scared the audience. 30. So I want to thank everyone for coming out. I want to thank the Chamber, thank Mr. Caforio. It is a very difficult thing to run for an election. And I'm looking out at the audience and I've seen several faces out here that have run for office, that have been in very difficult races. It is a tough thing. It's a tough thing not just for us, for our spouses, for our families, for everyone. So I always appreciate when people come out and get involved in the process. And if we don't agree, we're at least trying, and that's a big, big issue. I always tell the kids when I talk to them, don't be apathetic. That's the worst word in the English language. Be involved. So that's what we've done. People have written bad things about me. I just love Facebook. Everyone says, don't bully these days and don't do all that, and then they go on Facebook and just... But the fact of the matter is, I've said what I was going to do, and I did it. And no one has ever written anything about my passion and commitment for this district, my passion and commitment for my family. My beautiful wife is here today. My nephew is here today. My brother is here today. No one's ever written anything about my passion and commitment of what we're trying to do. We're trying to make it better. I tell my staff weekly, our job is to make it better, help people. I told you I was going to be the voice for aerospace. I've done that. I've stood up for aerospace. I will continue to stand up for aerospace until I don't have a breath. And for our veterans, I served in the military, but that doesn't mean that everyone doesn't love vets, because we do. There's no one that loves vets more than my wife. So I've been that voice, and I've stood up for veterans. We've done 1,700 cases in our office in the last 23 months just for veterans. And I told you that we would work on small business. Now, when I got elected, Kevin McCarthy came to me and he said, what do you want to do? And I said, I have one hope. I want to be in armed services. I sit on 3 subcommittees in armed services. I sit on science, space, and technology, because that is his district. I sit on small business. I sit on more subcommittees than any other congressional member in Congress, except for Colonel Cook, who's over in San Bernardino Valley. We sit on the same amount. We work 100%. We're always there. I thank you very much for this time.